is Carol Mixon-Crindle. I'd like to talk to you today about sales statistics and self-storage strategies. First, I would like to thank the SSA and Naxion for the great information they're providing for this webinar. One of the things that we always think about in self-storage is, what and how are we connecting with our customer? And who are our customers? And so first off, I have this statistics here from rented from the first facility contacted. 61% were millennials, 62% Gen X, 61 boomers, that would be me, as my son always calls me a boomer, and 63% is the greatest generation of all. So the other aspect to look at this as far as in-person visit versus phone and email and the facility website and other contacts. First one with the in-person, the millennials 33%, which pretty typical. I would assume that that would be right. And the Gen X are 46%, which is pretty high for them, I would think. And the boomers, pretty reliable at 55, and the greatest generation, 61% want to go in the very first contact and visit someone. Now look at the phone. I find the phone, pretty typical, or what we would assume is the millennials are calling more on the phone and then down from there. And email, look at the email contact from the millennials. The first contact that they have is on email. That's pretty amazing. And the other one that's interesting with them is the facility website. And you can see for example, the email is very little. Gen X, some with the email, 1% for the boomers. We just don't like to do that by email. Website, growing a little bit more, but again, the millennials are 12%, which is really good. So these things we need to keep in mind when we're talking about interacting with customers and getting to emails rapidly and not waiting too long to do that. So that's so important to know is how quickly we respond to all these types of different people who are renting from self-storage. So if the searched online in the self-storage facilities, millennials and boomers and the Gen X and the greatest generation. So searched online, millennials, yes, they're 48%, the Gen X 30%, greatest generation 21%, and the boomers are at 25%. So when you're considering whether it's important to have a self-storage website and have a website that you can actually rent from, it is. I mean, if you just look at this number right here of how many people are going to your website, even if you just say 25% of the boomers and the greatest generation, if that's the number of customers that are going to your website, you should be able to rent online. Very important. And first learning of self-storage, I think I always find this interesting, but saw the self-storage is 18% for the millennials, the Gen X is 27%, and the boomers must be driving around, so 45%, and the greatest generation is 40%. Family and friends that told them about it, it looks like the millennials take the least amount from friends, and it looks like the boomers and the greatest generation like to listen to their friends, I guess. Online Google, this is not surprising, millennial 18%, and Google, any of those search engines, and the least is the boomers. And the online self-storage or related website, these are all fairly low. So it looks like they're going to a Google or something like that, a search engine, instead of just looking up your website in particular. So that would be 8% for the boomers, 9% for Gen X. The millennials are 8%, the Gen X 9%, the boomers 7%. That's not so great, but look, hey, how about this? Went actually to the website, 11%, greatest generation. They're beating out the boomers there. And just giving online reviews, the millennials, look at that. Look at them go, 12%. We need reviews. We need good reviews. So keep asking those young people for reviews. But if you can look, you'll see the Gen X. You've got some that'll do that. 2% of the boomers. I'm probably up in that number because I like to give reviews. Good and bad, and 1% for the greatest generation. So the older people are not doing as many reviews, but I would say that's not totally, just a percentage wise, just ideas. So most potential customers call first. And it's important to know that when customers are calling, you need to have people that are really good on the phone. The phone has to be a priority for training and for the employee learning how to answer the phone well. So, because 92% of all customers interaction happens over the phone first. So it's really important for you to have great phone skills. The early bird catches the worm. This is extremely true in self-storage or in any business when you're talking about sales. You want to be quick. 30 to 50% of sales go to the company that responds first. That's huge. That's a huge number. So if you're going to ask people or have a way for them to contact you by email or by any other way, you have got to have people looking at that daily. And with our mystery shopping company that we have, Skill Check, we will also look at how long it takes for the person to actually, we call them with our mystery caller, and then we will look up, or you can look up what day that the manager said they actually responded to the person, and you can see time and everything. So it's really important, or if they even did it at all. And they may tell you they did it, but they never responded to those people. So losing those leads is huge. You don't want to lose any lead that you get, whether they're calling on the phone or they're emailing you or texting you. So don't forget to follow up on those sales calls, because 80% of sales needs a follow-up call after that first contact. So if they contact and they sketch your website, you need to follow up with them right away. And 94% of inquiries don't even get followed up on. That's a sad statistic, especially when you spend so much money to get the phone to ring and to have people there waiting to answer it. Another thing we need to remember is trying to get customer referrals. Because salespeople who actively ask for referrals, guess what? 4 to 5 times more than those who don't. That shouldn't surprise you. It's so important to ask people for referrals and offer something like one of these cards. You can do that, but you want to make sure you do something to try to get the customer to give you a referral. You can also have a referral competition among your managers, and you can give customers a $50 referral or a credit on their month's rent. But 91% of customers say they would give a referral, and only 11% of salespeople ask for them. That's the sad part. So you've got to ask for referrals. And the other thing that's so important in this whole process is making sure you improve your telephone and on-site salesmanship. And again, at Skill Check, that's what we do. We evaluate people's sales techniques. And when you're thinking about how to keep people at a high level of salesmanship, if you tell them that they're going to be evaluated on a regular basis, they seem to improve. Because it's just like having a shopper come in. You don't know when it's ever going to happen. So you keep the level of answering the phone and giving great service in person when they think this could be the shopper. You just never know. And sometimes people say, oh, I knew it was the shopper. Well then, geez, why didn't you get 100 then? Why didn't you do the best, especially when you don't score very well? That doesn't fly for me, at least, as an excuse. And you want to remember, practice isn't the thing that you do once you're good. It's the thing that you do that makes you good or great. And so 55% of people making their living at sales don't have the right skills to be successful. That's a sad statistic, because when you're thinking about how are my people going to improve their salesmanship, you have to have a means of training them and to follow up and maintain that trained behavior. So you can't just expect them to get better on their own. You have to help them to be able to do that. And the managers, those of you that are thinking, oh, geez, I hate to be evaluated and whatever, but no matter, if you want to be good at anything in life, you have to practice at it. And you really do, and you will improve. I promise you that, because you will listen to yourself and you'll think, wow, Sometimes I listen back to these webinars, I'm like, oh my gosh, look what a mistake I made, and laugh about it a bit. But you know what? The interesting aspect is I keep improving over time, and I keep trying harder and doing the best. I get better lighting, but see, the problem is my face never gets less wrinkled. I've got to figure out how I can figure that out. Oh, I probably could get a facelift, maybe something like that. But anyway, but my message, you hear my message, is to improve. You need to really practice and do it often, and then try to get better. So more sales training really does increase the profitability of the store. So if you do continuous training, you get 50% higher net sales per employee if you do training. But that means you really have to train for greatness, which the average company spends about 10 to 15,000 or so hiring individuals, and only 2,000 a year in sales training. So if you look at how much it costs to get a new person, and that includes like the cost of training, the cost of having somebody else in there when your other managers are out, it's all inclusive. But if you look at those numbers, you think, wow, I really should spend a little bit more money every single month on training my people to be great. So if you have a 10-month training time, let's say that's about what time it takes or the time it takes to train up a manager to be able to really do everything in their job duties really well. But it takes about 10 months. So if you have an ineffective onboarding practices, they're an expensive problem for many self-storage organizations. So you want to make sure you're onboarding people correctly with having a manual, having some training there, and really being able to train them up to do their job well. One idea to really reduce the time of sales reps productivity is to take some blended learning. So you may take some e-learning programs, you might have the mystery shopping program, and then follow up with your area managers or other people, that maybe even the owner helping the manager sell. And we do that too. We do follow-up training. I get on the phone with managers and I talk to them about how to improve their salesmanship. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but it really does take about 10 months to get a new manager trained up and really firing on all cylinders. Retaining customers, it's interesting about retaining customers. I think we do the best now. Well, okay, there's sometimes when people just move out or they have no more need or they've used up the time because now their new home's ready or whatever it is. So we can't retain those customers, but we really do a good job, I think, generally of retaining customers if they realize that there's a need for us and we treat them well. But retaining customers is like 6 to 7 times less costly than acquiring a new customer. So it's a good idea when customers say they're upset about something to try to deal with that and help them overcome that and keep them longer. And again, if they're at a low rental rate, you have a high demand, you may be able to get rid of that customer and get a new one quickly. But if you have low occupancy levels and you're sitting at a 60% and you've got 40% still vacant, you need to be good to every single one of those customers. And if you can fix the problem, you need to fix it so they don't move out. So acquiring those customers, average cost of a space is $150 a month, let's say for 8 months. That can be a lot of revenue, and that's important to know. Now, referrals, we're back to talking about that because you got to pay attention to your existing customers. So hopefully those existing customers you have that have a good experience, they're going to be engaged enough in your brand and how good you are to them. And you also remember to need to be asking for those referrals. So how do we keep these current customers happy? The average company loses about 10 to 30% of its customers each year. But you don't ever stop prospecting and selling. That's why even if you think, well, I'm at 100% occupied, I don't have to answer the phone well. Well, if you're 100% occupied, then you're mismanaging the storage property. It really should never be at 100% or you're not increasing your rents and you should have some availability there. And otherwise you're just stagnant in your rents. Even when your occupancy is high, you should still be selling and putting customers on a waiting list and working that waiting list. And new customers aren't a guarantee. You never know what the future holds. And we don't know. And even like with the COVID-19, there's some stores that have done very well and other stores that are having a difficult time. And if you're having a difficult time, think about keeping the current customers happy. And then every single sales call that comes in has to be a priority. And you really have to work on honing your sales skills to really get those customers to your property to rent. So remember when selling, 63% of the customers remember stories. And I find this interesting because usually when I do a webinar and things like that, when I tell a story or something, people are like, oh, I really enjoyed the stories. And one of the things that, your stories have to have a point. So when you're talking on the phone or you're telling something in person, you can tell a story. If something that happened, real, they said, oh yes, we just had a customer that had your same issue and they had the movers come in and we did this and that. So just tell a little bit of a story and make it easier for them to remember. And only 5% remember details. So all the things we're telling them on the phone, and especially if your voice is fast, you have a quick rate of speech, they may not be remembering all this. So storytelling can be very powerful. You may have to slow down a little bit, say, you know what, let me tell you about when you rent here. And that's the story. you get a gate code to get yourself in and out of the gate. That keeps, only the people on the property that need to be on the property. So all of that is your storytelling. And use that story to make a connection with the prospect and that customer coming in, because it will really increase your ability to close the sale. And how do our products and services really help people? That's part of your story. Is like, we've had so many people that are selling their homes and going into new homes, and or they're staging their home because they've got too much clutter, and it's very common. People put that here. So you're saying that you're not the only people that have these sort of issues, and that we're helping them out. Now, these are just a few statistics to help you manage your storage property better, and I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Carol Mixon Crindle from Skill Check, and thank you for listening.